Hello and welcome to our session. Today we'll be discussing the last chapter of the first year topic. It is the second part of control and coordination of our body activities. It is the chemical coordination and integration. We are all now discussing how our body is controlled by messenger molecules. In the last chapter, I told you that there are two systems to control and coordinate our body activities. Nervous system brings about quick point-to-point control through electrical signals called the impulses. The second system is with the help of certain chemicals, which are all messenger molecules called hormones, which are all released to the blood, and blood will take them to every cell of the body. It is a bit slow, but its control will be lasting long. Okay, now this chapter is concerned with how these hormones are produced and bringing about the control and coordination. Okay, the chemical messengers are called hormones. Formerly, we believed that hormones are all produced only by some ductless glands. These ductless glands are called endocrine glands. So, endocrine glands are mainly responsible for the control and coordination of our body activities. But recently we came to know that not only the ductless glands, we are also having other organs which are concerned with other functions, scattered tissues and cells in different parts of the body, which are also capable of producing such messenger molecules. So, the old concept of endocrine system is slightly modified. What was the classical definition of endocrine and hormone system? Hormones are chemical produced by endocrine glands, okay, and released to the blood and transported to a distantly located target organ. What is a target organ? The chemical messenger hormone produced by a gland is released to the blood. They are ductless glands, okay, and they release their secretion to the blood. Blood carries them to every part of the body, and where that chemical messenger hormone will be having action. That is called target. It is called the target organ. Okay, that was the classical definition. We believe that it is only the ductless glands that are producing these hormones. But we have modified that definition slightly, and the current scientific definition is that hormones are non-nutrient chemicals. They are all chemicals which are all different from that of vitamins. Vitamins are nutrients. They are essential for the normal functioning of our body, but these are not such products. These chemicals are non-nutrient chemicals. They act as intercellular messengers. They are all produced in trace amounts, in very, very small amounts. It may be produced by a gland, it may be produced by an organ which is having some other important functions, or it may be produced by cells and tissues which are remaining scattered, not organizing to form a gland. So, that is the new definition. The new definition cover a number of new molecules in addition to the hormones secreted by the organized endocrine glands. Understand that hormones are not only produced by organized glands or organized groups of cells. They are also produced by some scattered cells and other organs. In invertebrates, endocrine system will be very, very simple. Okay, we are having that endocrine system somewhat developed in insects, that is controlling their molting. Okay, whereas large number of chemicals act as hormones and provide coordination in vertebrates. We are having an elaborate system in vertebrates. Endocrine system is well developed in vertebrates. Okay, so what are the important endocrine glands and their functions? The endocrine glands and hormone producing diffuse tissues, cells located in different parts of the body are all constituting the endocrine system. Not only the organized glands, but also every tissue which is scattered, diffused, which are producing these chemicals are also part of the endocrine system. Thus, we are having pituitary, pineal, thyroid, adrenal, pancreas, parathyroid, thymus, and gonads. Remember, gonads are having the important function of production of gametes, but they also perform the function of secreting some hormones. So both male and female gonads are all capable of producing secretions, hormones. They are the organized endocrine bodies in our body. In addition to these, you are also having some other structures like the gastrointestinal tract, liver, kidney, heart, also producing hormones. So other organs like heart, kidney, liver, they are having some other important function. They are also producing hormones. And in the entire alimentary canal, you will be having scattered, diffused type of cells and tissues which are also producing intercellular communication molecules. So all of them are coming under our endocrine system. So going one by one, the hypothalamus. What is the hypothalamus? Hypothalamus is the floor of the diencephalon, which is the part of a forebrain. That part, hypothalamus, only a very small. Though it is a very small part, it is performing a number of important functions. Okay, don't think that hypothalamus is only endocrine function. No, it is producing a number of hormones. Along with that, it is also having an important function, which is temperature regulation. It acts as the thermostat of our body. It is regulating the body temperature. It also provides a number of secretions. These secretions are brought to the anterior pituitary through a portal system. This portal system is called hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. Starting from the hypothalamus, it is coming to the hypophysis, which is the pituitary. So it's called hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. Through this, it brings two types of hormones. What are these hormones? These hormones include releasing hormones. Only if a particular releasing hormone is reaching the anterior pituitary can release them. For example, anterior pituitary is producing growth hormone. It is producing adrenocorticotropic hormone. But these hormones can be released from the pituitary only if the releasing hormone reaches from hypothalamus to the anterior pituitary. So one set is releasing. What is the other set? It is inhibiting. So you are having releasing hormone that causes the release and inhibiting hormone that inhibits, suppress the release. So we are having two sets of hormones. One set causes the release of all the hormones one by one. There is specific releasing hormone and specific inhibiting hormone. Only in presence of this hormone, the anterior pituitary will be capable of producing and releasing them. Okay. Thus, hypothalamus controls the master gland. Pituitary is the master gland because it controls almost all other important glands of our body. But that master gland is under the control of the hypothalamus. So we call it as master of the master gland. It is the master of the master gland. Okay. The classical example is somatotrophic hormone. Okay. Somatotrophic hormone. Gonadotrophic releasing hormone. Gonadotrophic releasing hormone, GnRH in brief, is a releasing hormone. Only if this hormone comes to the anterior pituitary can release gonadotropins, an important hormone. Similarly, somatotrophic hormone. This hormone suppresses, inhibits the growth hormone. So it is growth hormone, inhibitory hormone also. So you are having releasing hormones and inhibitory hormones reaching the anterior pituitary through the bloodstream. The hormones are produced from the hypothalamus, reaches the anterior pituitary through the bloodstream, and thus it controls anterior pituitary. Okay. Now, you also have some neurosecretory cell concentrations called nuclei. There are large number of neurosecretory cells which are all concentrated. These concentration of neurosecretory cells send their hormones through their axon bundles. Axon bundles are called tracts. So through the tract, they are all brought to the posterior pituitary where they are all stored. From posterior pituitary, they are all released as and when required. So, posterior pituitary is not at all producing any hormone as such. It is just releasing the hormone that are produced and stored in it. It is actually produced by the hypothalamus. It is brought to the posterior pituitary through these tracts. You are having two hormones under this category, namely oxytocin and vasopressin. Vasopressin is also called ADH, anti-diuretic hormone, which is responsible for the absorption of water from the DCT and CT, thereby making the urine more concentrated. That is why it is called anti-diuretic. It is against diuresis. Other one is oxytocin. This oxytocin is responsible for the smooth muscle contraction. Contraction of the smooth muscles, especially the muscles of the uterus during childbirth. The term oxytocin means comfortable birth. It is the hormone that causes the uterine wall, the muscles of the uterine wall to contract vigorously and cause the childbirth. So these two hormones are produced by the neurosecretory cells passing through the tracts, brought to the posterior pituitary where they are stored till they are released to the blood. So we are having anterior pituitary controlled by releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones. Similarly, posterior pituitary actually is an extension, we can say that, because the hormones produced by the hypothalamus is brought to the posterior pituitary, stored there, and then released to the blood. Okay. So, hormones produced by the hypothalamus are of two types. That is what is given. Releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones. An example for hypothalamic hormone called gonadotrophic releasing hormone stimulate the pituitary to synthesize and release gonadotropins. On the other hand, the somatostatin from the hypothalamus, somatostatin from the hypothalamus is an inhibitory hormone which will be inhibiting the release of growth hormone from the pituitary. Okay. So that's about the role of the anterior pituitary. Now coming to the master gland, pituitary. Pituitary is a small structure, the smallest gland in our body, which is connected to the hypothalamus by means of a stalk. This stalk is called infundibulum. Okay. And since it is a bit below the level of the remaining part of the brain, in the skull, there's a small pit called sella turcica. It's a bony cavity called sella turcica located in the sphenoid bone. It is in this cavity that pituitary is safely placed. The pituitary gland is actually having an anterior pituitary and a posterior pituitary part. Okay, we are having the pituitary divisible anatomically into two parts, an anterior pituitary and a posterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary is glandular in function. That is why it is called adeno, secretory. That is why it is called adeno. And posterior pituitary is an extension of the brain, hypothalamus. So it's called neurohypophysis. Actually, the anterior pituitary is divisible into two parts. Pars distalis, meaning distal part, which is at the extreme tip, and pars intermedia. This partition can be seen only in the developing stages of the fetus. When development is almost complete, pars intermedia completely fuses with the pars distalis so that you cannot see them separately. Actually, it is from pars intermedia that melanocyte stimulating hormone is produced. Pars distalis actually originate as a pocket or pouch on the roof of the buccal cavity called Rathke's pouch. It is from the roof of the buccal cavity and is so endodermal in origin, whereas posterior pituitary, which is completely made up of nervous tissue, it is ectodermal in origin and so is called pars nervosa. Pars means part. Okay. And it is the adeno, anterior part, producing hormones which are controlling other glands. What are the important glands? Important hormones that are all secreted by the anterior pituitary. One, growth hormone. Growth hormone is responsible for the increase in the length of the bones so that we grow in height. When these hormones are produced in excess, we call it as hypersecretion. That may be causing certain problems sometimes, oversecretion. Similarly, lower level of these hormones, that is called hyposecretion, also may cause certain problems. For example, the growth hormone, if it is present in excess in our body, that will be causing a condition where the children will continuously grow. Normally, our growth is limited to puberty. Once we attain adult stage, called puberty. The long bones stop their growing because there's a capping on them. A cap made up of cartilage will be formed over them, that will be resulting in their stopping of elongation. So our height gaining become stopped. But here, because of the hypersecretion, the child will grow and its height will be much increased. It is resulting in a abnormal size called gigantism. Gigantism. And if the hormone is level is less, it is called hyposecretion. That may result in cretinism. No, dwarfism. It is called pituitary dwarfism. They are also called midget. So the patient will be, or the individual will be smaller in stature. There is no reduction in IQ, intellectual ability, skill, etc. That will be normal. But they will be very short in stature. So because of the pituitary deficiency. So in children, if the hormone is in excess, they will continuously grow, becoming increased in height continuously, gigantism. But suppose a man has reached puberty and it is after puberty. See, puberty means growth has stopped. After puberty, hormone is produced in excess. Then what will be the result? Long bones cannot grow continuously because bone growth is already capped. Bone capping occur during adolescence. So it already had occurred. So long bones cannot increase. So which bones can grow? Bones of the extremities of the limbs, jaws, etc. will grow. That condition is called acromegaly. So acromegaly is a situation formed by the excess secretion, hyper secretion of the growth hormone in adult. Gigantism and dwarfism are caused because of the abnormality of the hormone in children. This is for increased and this is because of the decreased quantity. Hypersecretion and hyposecretion of the hormone, growth hormone. Okay. Then thyrocorticotropic hormone, which is also called thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH. Thyroid stimulating hormone. So this thyroid stimulating hormone will be controlling the working of thyroid. Thyroid is an endocrine, the largest endocrine gland in our body. That is under the control of pituitary. So which is producing or which is responsible for metabolic balancing of our body. Metabolism is under the control of thyroid. Then ACTH, adrenocorticotropic, that is responsible for the control and the release of hormones of the adrenal cortex. Adrenal gland is yet another important endocrine gland. That cortical part, outer part is called the cortex. It is producing a number of steroid hormones. They are under the control of ACTH. Similarly, we are having gonadotropic hormone, which is responsible for the development and maturation of gonads. The functioning of gonads, both in male and female, are under the control of these hormones. There are two hormones, FSH, follicle cell stimulating hormone. These hormones are having two types of action. In female, FSH will be acting on follicle cells. That is why the follicles are growing, ovum is growing. Okay. And in males, it is acting on a cell called Sertoli cells in the testis, which is responsible for nourishment of developing sperms. Thus, it is helping in the development and maturation of gametes. Female gametes are developing in follicles and Sertoli cells are nourishing the development of sperms. LH. LH is responsible for the release of ovum. So it is causing what is called ovulation. Sudden increase in the LH is responsible for ovulation, and after ovulation, you will be having a structure called corpus luteum. Corpus luteum. That is under the control of LH. Whereas in male, LH is acting on Leydig cells. Leydig cells are interstitial cells, cells in between the seminiferous tubules in a testis. Say, for example, these are the seminiferous tubules. In between the seminiferous tubules, you will be having some cluster of cells. These cluster of cells are called the Leydig cells. Leydig cells produce testosterone, the male hormone that is responsible for the masculine features of a male. So, in both male and female, FSH and LH are having very important function in the development of gametes, in the functioning of gonads, etc. And coming to the last hormone, prolactin. Prolactin is responsible for the development of mammary glands in females. That is the first indication of maturation of a girl. A girl becomes mature, but there is an important point you have to remember. This hormone is not released up to the age of 8. It is inhibited up to 8 years. That's why a girl will never become mature before the age of 8. Who is suppressing? Dopaminergic cells. Dopa, a chemical. Dopa. Dopamine will be produced by certain cells that suppresses prolactin up to 8 years. After that, that inhibition is over and pituitary starts producing prolactin and mammary glands develop. That is the beginning of maturation, puberty of a girl child. So, is that clear? Anterior pituitary. Then coming to the posterior pituitary, we are having only storing function for the posterior pituitary. It is simply storing oxytocin and vasopressin, which are all produced by the hypothalamus, carried through the tract, brought and stored. Okay. ADH is concerned with water reabsorption so that urine becomes concentrated, and oxytocin is concerned with contraction of the smooth muscles. Is that clear? So that's about the second gland. Okay. Now coming to the an impairment affecting synthesis of release of ADH results in diminished ability of the kidney to conserve water. When water is not absorbed properly, what will be happening? More water will be going out. So urine become very dilute and we will be suffering from dehydration. Water is lost. So urine continuously, conspicuously, dilute urine is sent out. That is called diabetes insipidus. Diabetes insipidus or simply diuresis. ADH is against this diuresis because it is causing water to be absorbed, making the urine concentrated. So that hormone is called anti-diuretic hormone. It is against diuresis. Clear? Now, a gland which is located at the dorsal side of the forebrain, it is called the pineal gland. This pineal gland produces a hormone called melatonin. This melatonin is responsible for our sleep-wake cycle. 24 hours rhythm of our body, diurnal rhythm. It helps in maintaining the rhythm of sleep-wake cycle, and so this gland is called the biological clock. We are having a biological clock. Suppose you are all regularly going to bed by 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. Normally by that time you will be sleepy. And you are all getting out of bed, waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Normally by 6 o'clock you become woken up. So there is a built-in clock. So it is the biological clock. It helps in maintaining the normal rhythm of sleep-wake cycle, body temperature. It also influences metabolism, pigmentation, development of pigments in our body, menstrual cycle in female, as well as our defense capabilities. It is having a number of important functions. Pineal gland is located on the dorsal side of the forebrain, that is on the dorsal side of the diencephalon. Now coming to the largest gland. The largest gland, endocrine gland, is the thyroid. It consists of two lobes connected together by a bridge called isthmus. That bridge is called isthmus. Bridge is made up of connective tissues. Okay. So we are having almost a butterfly-shaped gland, the largest gland, which are all attached to the thyroid cartilage of our larynx. This thyroid gland is having a number of follicles in them. These follicles are remaining in a matrix called stroma. In the stroma, you have some cells called parafollicular cells. So, in between the follicles, this is the follicle. In between the follicle, you are having parafollicular. Follicles are producing hormones called generally as thyroxine. Thyroxine are actually two types, T3 and T4. They are all formed by adding iodine to an amino acid tyrosine. That is why it is called T3, having 3 iodine to a tyrosine, T4 for tetraiodothyroxine, triiodo, tetraido. They are called tetraiodothyroxine, T3 and triiodo. And sorry, tetra, T4 and triiodo. T3 is stronger and available only in 10%, whereas T4 is abundant. That is why it is commonly called thyroxine. T4 is commonly called thyroxine. So, iodine, from where we are getting? Only through the food. We should eat iodine containing food. Then only the sufficient amount of iodine will be available in the body for the production of thyroxines. Okay. Deficiency of iodine in our diet will be resulting in hypothyroidism. That results in enlargement of this gland. Okay. It is commonly called endemic goiter. It is commonly called endemic goiter. Deficiency of iodine causes endemic goiter. Hypothyroidism during pregnancy causes defective development and maturation of the baby. So the baby that is growing will not be having the normal health. It is having some problem. That is called cretinism. The baby will be having stunted growth. It will be having stunted growth, short stature. But here, IQ is also small. Mental ability is also small. Mental retardation, low IQ, abnormal skin, deaf mutism, etc. In case of women, hypothyroidism even influences the menstrual cycle to become irregular. And sometimes tumors may occur. Cancer growth may occur in the thyroid gland due to the development of nodules, and thus the rate of synthesis and secretion of the thyroid hormone become increased. That is called hyperthyroidism. See, exophthalmic goiter is a form of hyperthyroidism where the eyes become bulged out, enlargement of the thyroid gland, protrusion of the eyeball, increased basal metabolic rate, weight loss, etc. It is called Graves' disease. So, thyroid is responsible for regulation of basal metabolic rate. Basal metabolic rate, BMR. Okay. Hormone also support the process of RBC formation. It controls metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. Maintenance of water and electrolyte balance by influencing the kidneys. It is controlling the water level, salt level in the body and in the urine. Thyroid also secretes a protein hormone called thyrocalcitonin. The thyrocalcitonin, TCT, is actually produced by the parafollicular cells. What is its function? Its function is to reduce the calcium level in the blood. How it is reducing? The high level of calcium present in the blood is converted and stored in bones. So bones become very strong. So we call it as it is hypocalcemic in function. Calcium level is brought down. Hypocalcemic. Where the calcium level is brought down? In the blood. Where that calcium goes? Into the bones. So bones become strong in presence of parafollicular activation. So it is producing thyrocalcitonin. Now, Prosendan. Prosendan, the back side, that is the posterior side. Actually, it is the dorsal side. Of each of the thyroid lobes, you are having a pair of small glands. They are called parathyroid. See, the functioning and their secretions are entirely different from that of the thyroid. Only thing is that parathyroid is remaining attached to the thyroid. Parathyroid is responsible for the production of a hormone called parathyroid hormone or PTH, which is also called Colles hormone. It is also called Colles hormone because the gland was studied and discovered by a British doctor. So, Philip Colles. So, the term Colles hormone. Colles. It is a peptide hormone, meaning made up of numerous amino acids together. Parathyroid hormone will be hypercalcemic. It increases the calcium level in the blood. The thyrocalcitonin, calcitonin of the thyroid is hypocalcemic. This is increasing. So, how it is increase the calcium level? By resorption, by mineralization, by removing calcium which is already stored in bones. So, bones become weak. Okay. It increases calcium absorption from alimentary canal. So, from kidney, which is to be excreted. So, calcium level will be increasing in the body. That is why it is called hypercalcemic. Thus, parathyroid hormone or PTH is antagonistic in action with thyrocalcitonin because this Cowlitz hormone is hypercalcemic. It increases. Whenever there's a high level of calcium in the blood, immediately thyrocalcitonin or simply calcitonin is produced. Calcitonin is decreasing, and when the calcium level decreases beyond a limit, immediately hypercalcitonin is produced. Thus, calcitonin try to decrease, parathyroid hormone or Cowlitz hormone try to increase the calcium level. Thus, the calcium level or homeostasis of calcium is maintained by these two hormones, calcitonin and parathyroid hormones. Okay. Now, coming to the thymus. Thymus is a bilobed gland which is present just below our sternum bone. Its correct location is between the heart and the sternum, between the lungs, behind the sternum, on the ventral side of aorta. It's a lobulated structure. This thymus plays an important role in immunity. That is why this thymus is called the throne of immunity. It is called the throne of immunity. The T cells are maturing within the thymus. Why? Because thymus produces a number of hormones called thymosins. These are all peptide hormones. Okay. Thymosins play a major role in differentiation of T lymphocytes, in the maturation of T lymphocytes. And it is these T lymphocytes that are all attacking the pathogen through different types of cells it produces. So it is called cell-mediated immunity. The T lymphocytes are bringing about cell-mediated immunity, CMI. And in addition to that, it also promotes the production of antibodies into the blood by the B cells. So it is also helping in humoral immunity, that is through the blood. Thymus is degenerating in old individuals. By the age of 50, the thymus is completely reabsorbed, and as a result of that, old people become weak because their immunity is very, very minimum. Immunity is mainly because of T cells, which are all matured in the thymus. Thymus also is helping in producing antibodies. So in absence of that, immunity of old people become very less. So immune response of old persons are very weak because thymus disappears in adults. Okay. Now coming to the adrenals. Why it is called adrenals? It is attached onto the surface of the renal. That is why it is called adrenal. It is in the form of a hat-like structure, a cap-like structure, which is located on the anterior part of the kidney. So, a pair of glands which are on the anterior part of each kidney. It is having two regions, an outer cortex. We have studied that adrenocorticotrophic hormone controls the adrenal cortex. This adrenal cortex is actually almost constituting 80% of the cells of the adrenals. Okay, 80%. It produces a number of hormones which are all steroid hormones. It is developing from mesoderm. Whereas the adrenal medulla, the inner part, okay, this inner part, which is only 20%, produces hormones which are called catecholamines. They are also derived from tyrosine, the amino acid tyrosine. They are called catecholamine because they are having a catechol chain. Okay, so these catecholamines are emergency hormones. There are two types, namely adrenaline, which is also called epinephrine, and noradrenaline, which is also called norepinephrine. These two hormones are similar in action. Okay, they are all emergency hormones that prepare your body to meet with an eventuality. That's why we become very much excited, alerted. It increases the alertness. Okay, so the adrenal is producing adrenal medulla is producing emergency hormones that is responsible for fear, flight, flee. See, in such situations, we'll be having amazing power. Our alertness increases, pupil dilate, the hairs will stand erect, body temperature increases, heart rate increases, okay, and respiratory rate also increases. It also causes breakdown of glycogen. So your body will be having very rich amount of glucose. Protein is broken down. Amino acids will be abundant. Lipids are broken down. So fatty acids will be also present. So your body is having all the raw materials by which you can prepare anything to meet that emergency situation. So emergency hormone. So it's called hormones of fight or flight. They increase alertness, pupil dilation, piloerection, that is raising of the hairs in the body, sweating, etc. Both these hormones, adrenaline, noradrenaline, will increase the heart rate, strength of the heart contraction, and rate of respiration. Catecholamines also stimulate the breakdown of glycogen, resulting in increased concentration of glucose in blood. They also stimulate breakdown of lipids and proteins. This is what I have now discussed. Okay. Whereas the adrenal cortex, this adrenal cortex is divisible into three layers. We are having three layers in that. What are they? The outermost is called zona glomerulosa. Middle one is zona fasciculata. This is the widest part, middle. And the innermost layer is zona reticularis. And these are all producing a large number of hormones, which are all steroid hormones. Large number of steroid hormones are present. Let us see. Zona glomerulosa, the outermost, is producing hormones which are responsible for the control of mineral salts in our body. So we call them as mineralocorticoids. Remember, this cortex is under the control of the pituitary, ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. This mineralocorticoid is responsible for the control of balancing of sodium potassium level in the body. The characteristic hormone is aldosterone. If this aldosterone is in excess, we call this condition as aldosteronism. So hypersecretion will cause more sodium to be absorbed. We studied this role of aldosterone in sodium absorption in kidneys. In the DCT, sodium is absorbed under the influence of angiotensin RAS system. You remember that? So hypersecretion will increase more sodium to be present. and that condition is called aldosteronism. Conn's disease. Hyposecretion, less level, will increase potassium level in the body fluids. Okay, that condition is called, which will be characterized by a characteristic bronze-like nature, bronze-like skin. It is called Addison's disease. Who is this Addison? Thomas Addison is revered as the father of endocrinology. So his name is given. Addison's disease. Okay, Addison's disease. So when aldosterone, which is a important, the most important mineralocorticoid, which is produced by the zona glomerulosa. Now coming to the middle, zona fasciculata, which is the widest part, it produces a number of hormones which are responsible for the regulation of glucose metabolism. Okay, and so it's called gluco, they are called glucocorticoids. We are having cortisol, cortisol, cortisol are the most important hormones. They are simply the glucocorticoids, particularly cortisol. This will be stimulating gluconeogenesis. What is the meaning of that term? Glucose is produced from non-carbohydrate material like protein or lipid. Okay, so they are all converted to glucose. So glucose level is increasing. So this hormone is antagonistic to insulin. It increases the glucose level. It increases the breakdown of lipid, lipolysis, proteolysis, and inhibit cellular uptake of utilization of amino acids. So cells cannot produce and utilize amino acids. It is involved in cardiovascular system and kidney functions. It is having anti-inflammatory reaction. That is why when you are having allergy, immediately a dose of cortisol is injected because it will be suppressing our inflammatory activities and suppress the immune responses. You won't be having that allergic responses. Cortisol stimulate RBC production. Okay. So these are all the functions of glucocorticoids. And if there is excess level, hypersecretion, it causes the condition called Cushing's syndrome. Cushing's syndrome is because of the excess secretion, hypersecretion of the cortisol or cortisol. Third innermost layer is zona reticularis, innermost layer. This produces another set of steroid hormones which are all helping in the development of secondary sexual characters. So we call it as sex steroids or sex corticoids. We can call them as sex corticoids. Okay. Small amount of androgenic steroids are also secreted by the adrenal cortex, that is by the innermost region, that play a role in the growth of secondary sexual characters. So male and female develop adult-like structures like the growth of hairs, pubic as well as axial hair, facial hair in males, male-like sound, etc. during puberty. So it is because of this hormone that secondary sexual glands are developing, they are all maturing, they are all functioning, and secondary sexual characters are also developing. Okay, sex corticoids or sex steroids. Clear? So we are having zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis, which are the three parts of the adrenal cortex. Clear? Now, coming to the pancreas. We have studied that pancreas is the second largest gland in our body. That's right. Pancreas is the second largest gland. It is having two parts, exocrine and endocrine. Exocrine part is made up of acinar cells that produce enzymes. We have studied. These enzymes are responsible for the digestion of our food. Whereas this exocrine part, 98% are belong to this part. Whereas the endocrine, it constitutes only 2%. They are in the form of small groups called islets. So islets of Langerhans. These islets of Langerhans are having three types of cells, alpha, beta, and delta. Alpha cells are almost 15 to 20%. They are responsible for the production of a polypeptide hormone called glucagon. Glucagon is increase in the glucose level. It is hyperglycemic, meaning glucose level is increasing. How it increases? It causes breakdown of glycogen. Non-carbohydrate materials are converted into glucose. That is gluconeogenesis. So, the pancreas, which is made up of both exocrine and endocrine, so it's called a mixocrine gland. It is a mixocrine, also called heterocrine. Okay, is having alpha cells, beta cells, and delta cells. The alpha cells are producing glucagon, which is a peptide hormone, which is important role in maintaining the normal glucose level. Glucagon acts mainly on liver cells and stimulate the breaking down of glycogen, resulting in an increased blood sugar, that is hyperglycemic. That is why I told you it is hyperglycemic. This hormone stimulates the process of gluconeogenesis, non-carbohydrate material converted, which contribute to the hyperglycemia. Glucagon reduces the ability of the cells to take and utilize the glucose. That also will be causing the increase in glucose level in blood. So, hyperglycemic hormone. Whereas beta cells are 75 to 80%. They produce insulin. Insulin is also a polypeptide hormone which is hypoglycemic. Glucose level is decreased in the blood. How the glucose level is decreased? One, they will encourage the cells to utilize glucose, especially the muscle cells, because you are having with the insulin acting on hepatocytes and adipocytes, and will be also helping in taking glucose by the muscle cells so that they will be converting them into energy. So, glucose level in the blood is decreasing. Two, they will act on the liver cells so that glucose is converted into glycogen and stored. They will act on adipocytes so that the glucose will be converted into fat and stored. So, glucose level in the blood is decreasing. If there is a deficiency of insulin, that will be resulting in a condition called increased level of glucose throughout. That is called hyperglycemia. That will be resulting in the elimination of that excess glucose through the urine, glucosuria. So cells cannot utilize glucose because for the utilization of glucose by the cells, insulin is a must. If insulin is not available or if the body cells become resistant to insulin, then cells cannot utilize, then they will be taking energy by oxidizing fat. Fat oxidation will be resulting in the formation of ketone bodies. That is called ketonuria. So glucose will be present in urine as well as ketone will be present in the urine. These are the two important symptoms of diabetes mellitus. I told you diabetes insipidus. It is diuresis, dilute urine going out. Here it is diabetes mellitus. Simply we call it as sugar. Most majority of the adult person nowadays, they are having that sugar problem. So it is mainly because of the deficiency of insulin. So what should be done? We have to take insulin or tablet so that cells will be taking up glucose and glucose level will be maintained. So prolonged hyperglycemia lead to diabetes mellitus, which is associated with the loss of glucose through urine and harmful compounds known as ketone bodies. Diabetic patients are successfully treated with insulin therapy. Now coming to the gonads. Remember, gonads are not purely endocrine in function. They are having the function of production of gametes. Both testis and ovary are having the ability of producing hormones. Okay, so a testis which is present in scrotum will be made up of seminiferous tubules. You are having large number of seminiferous tubules. In the walls of the seminiferous tubule, you will be having spermatogonia cells formed. And in between this, you have the matrix. And in the matrix, you are having interstitial cells. Why it is called interstitial cells? Because it is lying in between. So it's called interstitial. These interstitial cells are also called Leydig cells. We studied that the LH is acting on. LH of pituitary is acting on them. Okay, so the stroma or interstitial tissue are containing interstitial cells, Leydig cells, which are producing testosterone. It is a steroid. Gonads are producing steroid hormones. It is commonly called androgen. Male hormones are called androgens, correctly called testosterone. What is the function of this testosterone? It regulates the development, maturation and functioning of the male accessory sex organs like the epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicle, prostate, etc. These are all structures associated with the male reproductive system. Their development and functioning are favored. The hormone also stimulates masculine growth. So boys become man with strong muscles, growth of facial and axillary hair, hair on the that is beard, aggressiveness, low pitch sound with rich in bass, masculine voice, and androgen play an important role in the process of spermatogenesis, that is formation of sperms. Androgens also act on the central nervous system and influence the male behavior, sexual behavior called libido. It is called libido. The characteristic behavior is called libido. Okay. They produce anabolic, that is synthetic effect on protein, carbohydrate, metabolism. So more protein is produced, more muscles are produced, body become more strong under the influence of androgen. Similarly, in females, you are having ovaries, a pair of ovaries which are located on the abdomen. See, in the case of mammals, The testes are not inside the abdomen. It is outside the abdomen in a sac called scrotum, whereas the female organs, ovary, are in the abdomen. They produce one ovum. That is the main function, production of ovum, female gamete, but only one ovum at a time during each menstrual cycle. And this ovum production is not the only function. They also produce two hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Remember, ovary is having follicles, and within the follicle, one ovum is developing one at a time. The follicle cells are producing, these are the follicle cells. Follicle cells are producing estrogen. This estrogen, okay, is secreted by the growing ovarian follicle. These follicle cells will be helping in the development of ovum in definite stages called primary follicle, secondary follicle, tertiary follicle, and mature Graafian follicle. And in the Graafian follicle, ovum is fully formed and then released. What is remaining after the release of ovum will be forming, see, the Graafian follicle, after release of the ovum, will be having an yellowish mass inside. This yellowish mass is endocrine. It is called corpus luteum. It is that corpus luteum that produces progesterone. What is the function of estrogen? The estrogen produces wide-ranging actions such as stimulation of the growth and activation of the female secondary sex organs. It is also acting on uterus endometrium, inner lining of the uterus, so that uterus become proliferated, it becomes thicker and thicker. And such a proliferated endometrium is helping in, or it is a must for attachment of the fertilized zygote into the endometrium. Then only pregnancy will be established. Okay. So estrogen will be responsible for the development of secondary sexual characters and development of endometrium in uterus. Then progesterone is responsible for the maintenance of pregnancy, and progesterone will be also maintaining that endometrium, thick endometrium. If that endometrium is not having or getting sufficient amount of progesterone, if there is no sufficient amount of progesterone, the endometrium, which is thickened, proliferated, now becomes separated, and that separated endometrium become tear off, they become torn off actually, and comes out. That is called menstrual or bleeding activity. Okay, so that is what is happening in females. So you are having progesterone that support pregnancy. It also acts on mammary glands and stimulate the formation of alveolar sac and milk secretion. So other organs which are having other important functions are also endocrine. For example, the heart. Heart is producing a hormone called ANF. We studied it in excretion. When there is excess of blood pressure, excess of water, etc., blood volume, blood pressure are very high, the atrionatriuretic factor is released by the walls of the atrium, and this is a vasodilator. It causes the blood vessels to dilate, so blood vessel to dilate means pressure will be decreasing. So when blood pressure is increased, ANF is secreted, which cause dilation of the blood vessels. Dilation of the blood vessel will cause fall in blood pressure and thus fall in GFR. Then juxtaglomerular cells of the kidney. We have studied that kidneys are having an a glandular structure, which is called juxtaglomerular apparatus. That juxtaglomerular cells are producing the renin. Also, it is producing erythropoietin. That erythropoietin is responsible for the control of RBC formation. Similarly, we are having endocrine cells present in different parts of the gastrointestinal tract. They produce a number of hormones. The most important one alone are mentioned here: gastrin. Gastrin act on the gastric glands and stimulate the secretion of HCl and pepsinogen. So gastric glands are activated by gastrin. Secretin is the first hormone that we have studied. Secretin is the first hormone we have isolated and studied. That is why it is called hormone. It's a German word. Hormone means to arouse. It acts on the exocrine pancreas. I told you pancreas is both exocrine and endocrine. Exocrine means which is producing the enzyme, digestive enzymes, and stimulate the secretion of water and bicarbonate ions, secretin. CCK act on both pancreas and gallbladder, and when gallbladder is activated, gallbladder contracts, bile is released, and when it acts on pancreas, it is causing the release of the second secretion of the pancreas, which is containing the digestive enzyme part. Okay, so stimulate the secretion of the pancreatic enzyme and bile juice respectively. CCK can act on both gallbladder and pancreas. And GIP, what is that GIP? GIP is an inhibitory hormone. Don't think that all hormones are activating. It is inhibitory. GIP inhibits gastric secretion and motility. So gastric glands are reduced in their action. We are also having a large number of other non-endocrine tissues that are all secreting hormones called growth factors. These growth factors are essential for normal growth of tissues. They are repairing regeneration. That is why we are all growing, and our tissues are having the ability to regenerate dead cells, damaged cells, etc. because of these growth factors. Okay, so these are the important endocrine glands and hormone producing organs and scattered cells in our body. Now coming to the last part. What is actually the mechanism of a hormone? Hormones are generally bringing about a change in the metabolism. Most of them are increasing, but a few of them are decreasing. So anyhow, our metabolism is altered because of the effect of the hormone. Hormones are produced in one part of the body, carried through the blood to every tissue, but it is having action on certain tissues only. Why? It is having action on that select tissue or select organ, because a hormone should come and bind with a suitable receptor. Only if a cell or a tissue or an organ is having the receptors, then only the hormone will come and get attached with that tissue, cell or organ. That formation of a complex between hormone and the receptor. So hormone receptor complex is an important must. So hormone plus receptor will form hormone receptor complex. So for that, you should have a receptor. Only if it is having a receptor, suitable receptor, there will be action. Otherwise, hormone will not act on such a cell. Suppose I am removing receptors from the surface of the cell, no action will be there. Sometimes a cell will be having large number of different types of receptors for different hormones, then all these hormones will have an action on that cell. Sometimes a tissue or a cell may be having only one type of receptor. Only that specific type of hormone will be acting on that. Now you understand why hormone will be acting only on a specific target organ. The target organ should have suitable receptors. Okay. The target tissue metabolism and thus physiological functions are thus controlled by the hormones. Now, what are these hormones made of? Built upon the chemical nature, hormones can be classified into four. There may be peptide, polypeptide, protein hormones. That is, they can be called simply as proteinaceous hormones. They are made up of amino acids, which are all in the form of long polypeptides. Okay, so peptide or polypeptide or protein hormones. Insulin, glucagon, pituitary hormones, hypothalamic hormones are all typical examples. Then steroid hormones, adrenal cortex, sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, etc. are typical examples. Then iodothyronins, they are made up of a single amino acid, tyrosine plus iodine. Tyrosine plus iodine. So it is called iodothyronins. And fourth one is amino acid derivatives. Amino acid derivatives, they are derived from tyrosine. Say for example, adrenaline, noradrenaline, that is epinephrine, norepinephrine, they are all amino acid derivatives. They are not containing amino acid, but they are all amino acid derivatives derived from amino acid. They are called catecholamines. Okay. Now, hormones which interact with membrane-bound receptors, we are having two types of actions or hormone. Chiefly, we can classify them into two categories: protein hormones and steroid hormones. Protein hormones are, see, we are having a protein hormones. Okay, they are all water soluble. They are insoluble or immiscible with lipids. So we call it as lipophobic. Phobic means hating. They are not soluble in lipids. And plasma membrane cannot allow the passage of materials which are all lipophobic. It will allow passage of materials which are all soluble in lipids only, because plasma membrane is made up of lipids and proteins. So, these proteinaceous hormones are generally not allowed to pass through. So, these hormones cannot enter into the cells. So, their receptors should be present on the surface. So, their receptors are called surface receptors or membrane receptors. They should have membrane receptors. Okay. Once the hormone, say for example FSH, comes and binds with the receptor on the membrane, immediately the membrane will produce second generation or second messengers. They are called second messengers. These second messengers are produced by the membrane and released to the cytoplasm. They are the materials that can pass to the interior of the cell. Hormone cannot enter. So, when hormone receptor complex is formed, immediately second messengers are produced. Who are all the second messengers? There may be a number of materials. Cyclic AMP, CAMP, calcium ions, IP3, inositol 3 phosphate, etc. are the classical example for second messengers, and they in turn regulate cellular metabolism, and hormones which interact with the intracellular receptors. So I will come to that point. So protein hormones immediately on coming in contact with the surface receptor will be causing the release of second messengers. The second messengers enter into the, they are all released into the cytoplasm and they will activate our biochemical reactions, and thus there will be an increase or change in the physiological activities. What is that physiological activity? When follicles are stimulated, hormone is coming, follicles are growing, ovarian growth is occurring. Whereas if a lipid hormone is coming, what is the peculiarity of that lipid hormone? Lipid hormones are steroid hormones, like lipid or steroid hormones. They are water hating. So hydrophobic. They are not soluble in water but are soluble in lipid. So they are all lipophilic. Philic means loving. Lipo means lipid. Lipid loving. So the plasma membrane will allow them to pass. They will reach the cytoplasm. They will also reach the nucleus after crossing the nuclear membrane, and they will be attaching with a particular part of the DNA. That part of the DNA will be acting as the receptor. So their receptor is within the nucleus. So intracellular receptors or nuclear receptors or genomic receptors. The receptor is a part of the genome. Immediately hormone will bind with that part, which is its specific receptor, and will be forming a complex. That complex formation will activate that DNA to produce a particular mRNA. And using that mRNA, protein is synthesized, and these proteins are used for producing enzymes. And using that enzyme, the physiological action will be undergoing a change. Thus, the physiology of the cell is changed. So understand that protein hormones are producing second messengers. Steroid hormones does not require a second messenger. But the protein hormones are very quick in action. They are all very quick. And their effect will be short-lived. Okay. Whereas the lipid or steroid hormones are requiring long time because they have to enter activated DNA, activate the production of an mRNA, producing enzyme. So it will be a bit slower. Though it is slower, the action will be long lasting. Okay. Long lasting action is there. Thus, we are having two types of action for these two types of main types of hormones. One more point. The thyroid hormones, they also can be taken by any cell because they are made up of a single amino acid. They will be taken, absorbed by any cell. So thyroid hormone, though it is made up of a single amino acid, its action is similar to that of the lipid or steroid hormones. So our thyroid hormones and steroid hormones does not require a secondary messenger, and these are all requiring a secondary messenger, and those which are requiring a secondary messenger will be very quick in action. The metabolic change it brings about will be very quick, and the action will be only short-lived, only for a short time. Whereas the action brought about by a steroid or a thyroid hormone will be long-lasting. So that is the difference between the action of a steroid and a protein hormone. So these are all the important points that I have to remember from this chapter. Understand the differences? And with that, we come to the conclusion of the discussion of the chapter, chemical coordination and control. We'll be again meeting with a chapter from the second year topics. Until then, I say goodbye to all of you and hope you will be keeping all fine. So thank you all. Thank you very much.